Madison Hayes sat hunched over her desk at Brenner Cole Industries in New York. Her eyes flicked between two open chat windows glowing on her computer screen. One was a stiff professional thread with her boss, the notoriously cold and unreadable CEO, Ethan Cole. The other belonged to her boyfriend, Logan, whose last text had been a flat, cool, "Talk later." That message had sat unanswered for 3 days. Her chest tightened. Madison wasn't the kind of woman who begged, at least not usually. But lately, Logan had been slipping through her fingers like dry sand. Every interaction felt strained, filtered, tired. What had begun with fire now felt like a dying ember in a forgotten fireplace. She hadn't been in love for 3 years before Logan, and now, just 6 months in, she was back to questioning her worth. "Maybe if I tell him how I really feel," she thought, typing with trembling fingers. "I love you. Please don't leave me." She stared at the words, read them again, then again. Her thumb hovered over the send button, her heartbeat thudding in her ears. It felt foolish, maybe even pathetic, but part of her needed to try. Just as she was about to send it, her work email pinged with a notification. Ethan. He was requesting the finalized pitch deck for the quarterly expansion meeting. Typical Ethan. No greeting, no please, just send me the deck now. Rolling her eyes, Madison clicked away from her unsent message to Logan, switched to her email app, and attached the file he wanted. She tapped out a quick reply. Attached. "Let me know if you need adjustments." But her thoughts stayed clouded with Logan. The message to him still sat there, blinking in the chat window like a dare. Her chest squeezed. Just do it. Don't overthink it. She cleared the words, then typed them again. With a shaky sigh, she switched back, hit send, and froze. The recipient's name wasn't Logan. It was Ethan Cole. Her heart plummeted to her stomach. Wait, what? Panic surged. She fumbled with her phone, double-checked, and there it was. The message meant for Logan had gone straight to her boss, the CEO, the man with all the warmth of a snowstorm. "I love you. Please don't leave me." To her boss. "No, no, no, no," Madison whispered, slapping a palm to her forehead. She considered unsending, but it was too late. The check marks glared back at her. Delivered. Read. Her stomach churned as she stared at the screen, praying for it to stay blank. 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Ethan Cole. My office. 9 a.m. That was it. No context, no punctuation, no humor, no forgiveness, just a summons. Madison stared at the screen as if it might combust in her hand. She wanted to scream, cry, run, anything but walk into that office tomorrow. Her brain spun with worst-case scenarios. Sexual harassment? Gross misconduct? Would he fire her for being unprofessional? Would HR drag her into a hearing? Her entire career at Brenner Cole, the job she had fought for, worked late nights for, uprooted her life for, suddenly hung in the balance of one tiny tragic mistake. She opened the message again just to make sure she hadn't imagined it. No, still there, still awful. I am so screwed. She dropped her phone and buried her face in her hands, trying to breathe through the rising panic. Deep down, she already knew her life would never be the same after tomorrow. The next morning came far too quickly. Madison barely slept. She had lain awake in the dark, swinging between nightmares of being fired in front of the entire staff, or worse, being escorted out of the building by security with her belongings dumped in a cardboard box. All because she had mixed up 2 chat windows. By 6:30 a.m., she was already dressed. By 7 a.m., she had changed 3 times. Finally, she settled on a pale lavender blouse, tucked neatly into a pair of high-waisted charcoal gray trousers. It looked professional, safe, unremarkable, the kind of outfit that said, "I am competent. I belong here. Please don't fire me." Her makeup was polished but understated, and she pulled her auburn hair into a sleek French twist that silently pleaded, "See, I have my life together." She arrived at Brenner Cole Tower in downtown Manhattan at 8:22 a.m. Her nerves stormed behind the calm mask she forced onto her face. The glossy marble lobby reflected her like a stranger. She stood still for a moment, inhaled deeply, then made her way to the elevator. The ride to the 52nd floor felt endless, though it lasted less than a minute. The door slid open with a soft chime, spilling her into silence. Ethan Cole's executive floor was always like this. No one raised their voice above a whisper. Even the assistants walked as though they feared the sound of their heels might offend him. His office loomed at the far end of the corridor. Glass walls, mahogany doors, modern lighting, everything gleaming with cold precision. Madison's heels clicked far too loudly on the polished floor as she approached. At the reception desk outside, Ethan's assistant Lena glanced up briefly. Her face gave nothing away. "He's expecting you," Lena said flatly, returning to her screen. "Of course he was." Madison nodded stiffly and moved toward the heavy glass doors. She didn't bother to knock. Ethan Cole never tolerated delays. You were either on time or you didn't matter. It was 8:59 a.m., exactly when she stepped inside. The office was massive, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the New York skyline like a living painting. Ethan stood with his back to her, hands clasped neatly behind him, staring out as though plotting how to own every building in sight. His posture was rigid. His charcoal suit was tailored with surgeon-like precision, not a single crease out of place. Madison waited near the doorway, her heart pounding like a drum. "Miss Hayes," he said at last, without turning. His voice was smooth, controlled, but distant. "Mr. Cole," she croaked, then quickly cleared her throat. "Sir." A pause. Ethan turned slowly, his sharp eyes locking onto hers. Those eyes always made her feel as though he saw too much while revealing nothing. "That message," he said. His tone was calm, but heavy. "Was it meant for me?" There it was, the moment she dreaded. Her mouth went dry. "No, sir," she said quickly. "It wasn't. It was a mistake. I had just replied to your email, and I thought I was messaging someone else. I sincerely apologize. It was completely inappropriate, and I understand if there are consequences." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He walked toward his desk, leaned against it, and folded his arms. His expression gave nothing away. No anger, no mockery, no irritation. Just a curiosity that made her even more nervous. "I see," he said at last. "And the person it was meant for, they never received it?" She blinked. "No, I didn't send it again afterward. I realized the mistake." His gaze lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. Then he gave a small nod. "Understood." He straightened, stepped behind his desk, and picked up a folder as though the matter was already dismissed. "You're excused, Miss Hayes." Madison blinked, stunned. "Wait, what?" "You're excused," Ethan repeated, eyes dropping to the file in his hands. "That will be all." She hesitated. Should she thank him? Clarify again? But his attention had already shifted elsewhere. Her heart pounded harder as she turned toward the door. Just as her hand touched the handle, his voice stopped her. "Miss Hayes." She froze, looked back. Ethan's eyes met hers, something unreadable flickering within them. Then he said, softly, "It's been a long time since anyone said that to me." Madison's throat tightened. She couldn't form words. She just gave a small, unsure nod and slipped out. As the door clicked shut behind her, she stood frozen in the quiet hallway, her chest heaving like she'd just run a marathon. Her hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from something else. She didn't know why, but his last words stayed with her. Even by accident, Ethan Cole wasn't just cold, he was lonely, and that unsettled her more than anything. Monday arrived with the familiar hum of printers, the ping of emails, and the shuffle of papers across the open-plan 27th floor where Madison worked. Yet everything felt altered. She hadn't spoken to Ethan Cole since their unsettling exchange in his office 3 days earlier. Still, she felt his presence everywhere. Maybe it was paranoia. Or maybe it was the way his eyes had lingered on her during Friday's briefing. Sharp, thoughtful, unreadable. Maybe it was how his voice softened just slightly when addressing her. No one else seemed to notice, but Madison did. He hadn't mentioned the mistaken message again, hadn't joked, hadn't acknowledged it at all. He had simply gone back to being the CEO, cold, professional, ruthless. Or so it appeared. At 9:15 a.m., Madison was knee-deep in weekly reports when an unfamiliar scent drifted across her desk. She turned her head slowly. Beside her laptop sat a tall caramel latte. Hot, 1.5 sugars, light foam, just the way she liked it. Her pulse quickened. She looked around. Her colleagues were buried in their screens. No one looked her way. There was no note, no name, no explanation. She lifted the cup hesitantly, scanning the lid. Nothing but a single scribbled M in black marker. A coincidence? Her phone buzzed. Ethan Cole. See me. 11:30. She stared at the message, warmth from the cup seeping into her palms. 2 hours later, she stood outside his office again. Lena's desk was empty. The hallway unusually quiet. Madison smoothed her blouse, inhaled, and pushed open the glass door. Ethan was behind his desk, his suit jacket off, his crisp white shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked like a man sculpted out of shadow, effortlessly intimidating, impossibly composed. "Close the door," he said without glancing up. She obeyed. He gestured toward the chair across from him. She sat down, but instead of staying behind the desk, he pulled a chair closer, settling directly across from her, like this was a conversation, not a meeting. "How was the coffee?" he asked, his tone low. Her breath caught. "It was good," she said carefully. "You didn't seem surprised." "I was. I just didn't know who." She trailed off. "You didn't ask." Madison blinked. "I didn't know if I was supposed to." He studied her as if peeling back layers one by one. Finally, he said, "I didn't call you in today for work." Her pulse raced. Then, why? "Because I wanted to talk." His words were simple, but startling. "Off the record," he added. Madison almost laughed nervously. "Ethan Cole? Off the record?" He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. For the first time, he looked less like a billionaire executive and more like a man setting aside his armor. "You said something," he murmured. "Something I haven't been able to forget." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. They both knew what he meant. "I know it wasn't meant for me," he continued, watching her carefully. "But it made me think." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Think about what?" He hesitated. Rare for him. About what it means to need someone enough to say that. Silence stretched between them, fragile and heavy. "I've built my life around not needing anyone," Ethan said at last, eyes never leaving hers. "But once, I thought I had someone, thought I'd made space for love." She waited. "She left," he said flatly, "told me I didn't know how to feel, that I was more machine than man. Maybe she was right." His jaw clenched. Then his gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "But you," his voice drifted, "you sent 7 words to the wrong man, and they hit harder than anything I've heard in 5 years. Madison's lips parted, stunned. She hadn't expected this. "You're different, Miss Hayes," he said quietly. "You feel everything. I envy that." Her throat was dry. "Sir, Ethan," he interrupted. Her brows lifted. "If we're going to have conversations like this," he said, "stop calling me sir." She swallowed. "Ethan." For the first time, a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips, brief, fleeting, like something that had been buried a long time. Then he stood slowly, almost carefully, as if not to break the moment. "That's all for today. he said. "You can go." Madison rose, dazed, and made her way to the door. Just before her hand touched the handle, she turned. "Ethan?" He glanced up from his desk, pen poised. "Did you send the coffee?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, without looking at her, "Do I seem like the kind of man who knows how you take your coffee?" A faint smile touched her lips. "You don't seem like the kind of man who notices anything, unless it matters." Their eyes held for one suspended heartbeat. Then she left, the door shutting softly behind her. Ethan sat back in his chair, her words echoing, "Unless it matters." He didn't even realize he was smiling. The day Logan ended things was almost insultingly casual. Fitting, really. Madison had just stepped out of a strategy meeting, arms full of binders, her mind crammed with notes for an upcoming presentation. She was juggling her laptop and a half-empty water bottle when her phone buzzed. She glanced down, expecting a message from her team lead. It wasn't. "I've been thinking. I don't think this is working. You deserve someone more emotionally available. I'm sorry." No build-up, no call, not even a proper goodbye. Just 5 flat lines that shattered 6 months. Her heart didn't break instantly, not like in the movies. There were no sobs, no dramatic collapse to the floor, just numbness spreading slowly in her chest like frost. She stopped walking. Voices swirled around her in the corridor. People passed, but she heard nothing. She stared at the message, letting its finality seep into her like ink on paper. He hadn't asked how she felt. Hadn't wondered if she was okay. He had just decided. Madison swallowed hard, adjusted her grip on the folders, and kept walking. Her jaw locked tight, her eyes dry. If Logan couldn't care enough to end things face to face, she wasn't going to waste tears on him. Not here, not now. By the time she reached her desk, the ache had arrived. Tight, sharp, echoing. The weight of all the late-night calls she'd waited for, the texts she'd reread, convincing herself he still loved her, or at least cared enough to try. She sat down, turned her face slightly toward her monitor, using the screen as a shield. No one would see her break. Her phone buzzed again. She braced for Logan. It wasn't. "Ethan Cole, come to the 52nd floor. Bring your laptop." Her stomach flipped. The timing felt uncanny. Almost as if he could sense her mood 30 floors away. She grabbed her laptop and rode the elevator up, body moving on autopilot. Lena didn't say a word when Madison arrived. She just buzzed her through. Inside, Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows. He wears a navy blue tailored suit. The skyline stretched behind him, glowing like steel and fire. "Close the door," he said. She did. He didn't sit behind his desk. Instead, he motioned toward a sitting area, a pair of armchairs by the glass with the city sprawling below. "Sit," he said gently. Madison hesitated, then obeyed. "I don't actually need your laptop," he said after a pause, lowering himself into the chair opposite her. Her brow furrowed. "You don't?" "No." His eyes studied her quietly. "You're upset." Her hands tightened in her lap. She wanted to deny it, but the words slipped out instead. "I got a text," she said softly, "from someone I shouldn't have been fighting so hard to keep." Ethan's expression shifted. Not pity, not condescension, but something more grounded, attentive. "He ended it," she admitted, her gaze fixed on her hands. He didn't reply immediately, but his silence felt heavy, steady, like a presence anchoring her instead of leaving her adrift. "I think I knew it was coming," she whispered, "but knowing doesn't make it hurt any less." He gave a single, slow nod. "No, it doesn't." Madison let out a small, bitter laugh. "Sorry, I didn't mean to unload that on you. I just didn't expect it today." "You don't have to apologize," he said. His tone carried a weight that startled her. "Not to me." Her eyes flicked up. For the first time, his gaze wasn't cold. It wasn't unreadable. It was human. She looked away quickly. "I should get back to work." "You should stay." Her breath caught. Ethan rose, walked to the minibar tucked in the corner, and poured 2 small cups of espresso. He returned, handed one to her without asking. Their fingers brushed, just briefly, but it felt like a spark. "You're not as unreadable as people think," she murmured, eyes on the cup. His brow arched. "No?" "No," she sipped. "You're guarded. That's different." He leaned back slightly, studying her again, like an equation he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. "Have you ever trusted someone?" she asked, then instantly regretted it. His jaw tightened. "Yes." "And afterward?" He paused, then answered, steady and blunt. "I built walls. Fortresses, really." Madison gave him a sad smile. "And now?" "Now I sit in offices like this," Ethan said quietly, "pretending I'm not lonely." The room stilled. They sat in silence, sipping espresso, the city glowing like fire beneath them. For the first time in a long while, Madison didn't feel like she had to force herself to be okay. And Ethan, he wasn't wearing his armor anymore. Not around her, not tonight. The invitation came on a Tuesday. Not through email, not from a PA, but in a thick black envelope, velvety to the touch, sealed with a silver wax crest, stamped with Brenner Cole's insignia. It sat neatly on Madison's desk. She hesitated before opening it, her fingers trembling slightly. Inside, printed on heavy cardstock in elegant lettering, were the words, "You are cordially invited to the annual Brenner Cole Founders Gala. Location, the Hamilton Ballroom, 7 p.m. sharp. Attire, formal." But beneath the printed text was something handwritten, sharp and slanted in ink. "Would you be my date, Ethan?" Her breath caught. She read it 3 times. It wasn't formal. It wasn't business. It was unmistakably personal. She whispered under her breath, "What are you doing, Ethan Cole?" The night of the gala arrived draped in velvet skies and glittering city lights. Madison stood before her full-length mirror in her Brooklyn apartment, barely recognizing the reflection. Her midnight blue gown draped over her frame like liquid silk. The off-shoulder neckline swept elegantly across her collarbones, while a subtle slit along her thigh hinted at movement with every step. The sweetheart cut sculpted her shoulders and made her look like she belonged in a room of power. Her auburn hair, usually pinned back in a bun for work, flowed in soft waves, one side pinned with a silver clip that caught the light. Silver earrings brushed her jawline. Her lips were painted the shade of red wine, her eyes smoky and bold. She didn't feel like a junior associate tonight. She looked like a woman meant to be seen. Her phone buzzed. Cars downstairs. E.C. Her stomach flipped. A sleek black sedan waited at the curb. The driver opened the door with a polite nod. Inside, the leather smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cologne. But the car was empty. No Ethan. The anticipation twisted in her chest. When the car pulled up to the Hamilton, cameras flashed across the steps. The gala always drew attention. Press, investors, city officials, industry titans. Madison stepped out cautiously, nerves coiling tight. Then she saw him. Ethan stood at the entrance in a tailored black tuxedo with a silk lapel, crisp white shirt, and no tie. For once, he didn't look like the untouchable CEO. He looked unguarded. When his eyes found her, he stopped. The noise of the crowd seemed to fade. He walked toward her, his gaze steady. "You look." He paused, scanning her head to toe. "Dangerous." She laughed softly. "And you look expensive." "Technically, I am." He offered his arm. She took it. Inside, the ballroom glowed with golden chandeliers and the sweep of a string quartet. Waiters glided between clusters of guests with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It was the kind of event that could swallow someone whole. But Ethan never let Madison drift more than a few steps away. He introduced her not as an employee, not with a title, but simply, "This is Madison." Her name, spoken with gravity, was enough. An hour later, they stood at the edge of the ballroom, champagne glasses in hand, watching the swirl of suits and gowns move like a living painting. Madison tilted her head. "Do you always bring junior employees as your date?" A smirk ghosted across his lips. "Only when they send me accidental love confessions." She flushed, rolling her eyes. "Never letting that go, huh? Do you know what that message did to me?" His voice dipped lower, almost lost beneath the music. Her smile faltered. "I thought I was hallucinating," he admitted. "Read it 3 times, waiting for it to change. No one said anything like that to me in years." "Even though it wasn't meant for you?" she asked softly. He nodded once. "Didn't matter. It cracked something open." Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the quartet anymore. Ethan set both their glasses aside and extended his hand. "Dance with me." The music shifted. Soft jazz, romantic, and deliberate. Madison hesitated only a moment before slipping her hand into his. His touch was warm, steady, certain. He led her to the center of the floor. Heads turned, the CEO and the mysterious woman in blue, but neither seemed to notice. His hands rested at her waist. Hers curled lightly over his shoulder, their fingers interlaced. He moved with precise rhythm, guiding her effortlessly. He held her close, not possessively, but like he was afraid the moment might vanish. "I've never done this before," he murmured. "Dance?" she teased. "No." His eyes burned into hers. "This. Risking something real." Her throat tightened. "Neither have I." They moved in silence for a long stretch, just 2 people, adrift in music. Finally, Madison whispered, "Ethan, what are we doing?" He leaned closer, his lips near her ear. "Something dangerous." Her breath caught. "Are you scared?" "Yes." A beat. "Are you?" "Yes." She swallowed. He pulled back slightly, meeting her gaze. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." She stared at him, stunned. Then, slowly, she smiled, like the world itself was holding its breath. It began with thunder. The first rumble was distant, low, echoing across Manhattan like a warning drum. Madison barely noticed at first. She was still at the office, finishing the quarterly marketing report Ethan had casually asked to glance at, which in his language meant perfected, bound, and flawless. By 8:42 p.m., the open floor was nearly empty. Motion sensor lights flickered on and off as she moved between her desk and the printer. Outside, streaks of lightning split the sky, followed by the hammering of rain against the glass walls. She sighed. Great. Packing her laptop, she grabbed her umbrella and headed to the lobby. But when she reached the revolving doors, she froze. The rain wasn't just heavy. It was a downpour, a furious curtain slamming against the streets. Taxis flew past without stopping. Her rideshare app blinked uselessly. No drivers available. Lightning cracked. Thunder roared, shaking the building. Her phone buzzed. Ethan Cole, still in the building? She hesitated before replying. Just reached the lobby. It's insane out here. Seconds later, another message. Come upstairs. Wait it out. Her thumb hovered. She could decline. She could wait in the lounge. She could call Lena for help. Instead, she typed, on my way. Ethan's penthouse sat just above his office floor. It wasn't what Madison expected. Yes, it was sleek and expensive, but it wasn't sterile. Dark wood floors softened by woven rugs, floor lamps casting a warm glow. A wall of glass opening to the city, but balanced by a kitchen of brick and steel that looked surprisingly lived in. A record player spun something jazzy in the corner, filling the space with velvet tones. When he opened the door, Ethan wasn't in a suit. He wore a dark sweater and tailored slacks, his sleeves pushed to his forearms. His usually perfect hair was tousled slightly, like he'd run his hands through it too many times. You live here? She asked, stepping inside, shaking out her umbrella. Sometimes, he said, closing the door behind her. When work runs late, or when I don't feel like being human anywhere else." He took her coat and disappeared for a moment, returning with a towel. "You're drenched," he remarked. "The rain doesn't care about fashion," she muttered, drying her arms. He poured 2 glasses of red wine, handed one to her, and sank onto the sofa. She followed, curling her legs beneath her, the glass warm in her hands. The rain pounded the windows like 1,000 fists. Lightning flashed. Jazz hummed, low and steady. Madison studied him in the dim light. His profile was sharp as ever, but something had softened in him tonight. The air wasn't heavy with intimidation. It was heavy with something else. "Do you ever get tired of being this?" she asked quietly. He turned. "This?" "The controlled one. The CEO. The man who never cracks." A faint smirk ghosted across his face. "It's a mask. People trust masks more than faces." "I don't," she said softly. "I know." Their eyes held in silence. Then his voice dropped lower. "Are you okay? After what happened with him?" Her stomach tightened. "Yeah. I will be. I just thought I could fix something that wasn't mine to fix. I kept pouring myself into empty hands." Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "I don't like watching you hurt." Her breath caught. The storm softened outside. The jazz shifted to a slower piano melody. "You don't let people see this side of you often, do you?" she whispered. "No." "Why me?" she asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his glass, leaning forward. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because you never asked me to be anyone else. You didn't even like me at first." "I thought you were an arrogant iceberg," she teased, smirking faintly. A laugh escaped him. Low. Real. Her smile faded into something gentler. "Now I think you're hiding too much, and maybe you don't want to anymore." Their eyes locked. He wasn't her boss right now. Not the billionaire. Just a man, stripped of armor. "I haven't let someone in for a long time, Madison," he said quietly. "Too many people liked the surface. None wanted the mess underneath." She set her glass aside, voice barely above a whisper. "Show me." His breath hitched. Slowly, cautiously, he leaned closer. Their knees brushed. "I don't know how to do this without ruining it," he admitted, his voice almost breaking. "Then let's not ruin it," she whispered. "Let's just be in it." His hand rose, brushing her cheek with tentative fingers. She didn't pull away. Her pulse quickened as his lips found hers, soft at first, hesitant, like he was giving her time to run, but she didn't. Her hand slid to the back of his neck, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, unraveling years of silence and loneliness between them. They stayed that way for a long time. No explanations, no labels, no rush. When they finally broke apart, foreheads pressed together, the storm had quieted outside. The thunder was gone. But inside them both, something new had begun. Something real. 6 weeks passed since the storm, since that night in Ethan's penthouse when rain and silence had stripped away distance, since that kiss, soft, searching, unexpected, that cracked something sacred open. And in those weeks, something bloomed. Not scandal, not chaos, but peace. It showed in the smallest ways. A quiet lunch in the corner of a cafe. A morning coffee left on her desk without explanation. A glance that lingered just a second too long in meetings. Nothing dramatic. Nothing public. Just theirs. But secrets, especially with Ethan Cole, never stayed secrets for long. It happened on a Tuesday. An email landed at 3:47 p.m. Urgent board meeting. 5 p.m. Mandatory attendance. No context, no explanation, just urgency. By 5, Madison sat quietly at the back of the expansive boardroom. The glass walls felt colder than usual. The polished table stretched endlessly, lined with board members in sharp suits, their gazes sharper still. At 5:02, Ethan entered. Impeccable as always. Calm, composed, unreadable. Yet when his eyes flicked across the room and found Madison's, something softened, just slightly. The chairman, a tall man with silver hair and a voice like gravel, rose. "We've received multiple reports regarding Mr. Cole's involvement with a junior employee." His eyes flicked deliberately toward Madison. "Given the company's strict policies on professional boundaries, we must ask whether this compromises his ability to lead." A murmur rippled through the room. Madison's stomach twisted. But Ethan didn't flinch. He stood slowly, folding his hands in front of him. "There's no breach of conduct," he said firmly. "No manipulation. No abuse of power." "She's a junior associate," one woman pressed. "You're the CEO." "I'm also a human being," Ethan replied, his voice sharp but steady. "And for once, I refuse to hide behind the title." The room fell silent. "I've led this company for over a decade," he continued. "Made brutal decisions, built trust, exceeded growth. Never once have I compromised this firm's integrity, and I won't start now." He turned his head then, toward Madison. Every eye followed. "I didn't plan this," he said. His voice was quieter now, but carried more weight than any corporate speech. "She didn't either. But when something real finds you, you don't bury it." Madison's chest tightened. "If the board believes this disqualifies me," Ethan said, his jaw set, "I'll step down." Gasps rippled across the table. The chairman blinked, incredulous. "You would give up your position for her?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Yes." The silence that followed felt heavier than thunder. And then, unexpectedly, Madison rose. All eyes turned. She walked forward, her spine straight, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "I didn't ask him to say that," she began. "I've never asked him for anything beyond my role. I never tried to leverage our connection, and I never will." She looked at Ethan then, her words softening. "He's not the man people assume. He's not ruthless. He's not cold. He's guarded. And when someone has spent their life building walls, the decision to let someone in isn't weakness." She turned back to the board, her chin high. "It's courage." The room was still. Finally, the woman who had spoken earlier exhaled and nodded once. "Thank you, Miss Hayes." The meeting adjourned without a vote. Ethan remained CEO. But what lingered in the room wasn't policy. It wasn't politics. It was the look Ethan gave Madison. Not gratitude, not relief, love. That weekend, they stood on the rooftop of Ethan's penthouse, the city glowing beneath them like rivers of light. Madison leaned against the railing, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The night air was warm, the breeze gentle. She wore one of Ethan's sweaters, the sleeves long enough to swallow her hands. Behind her, Ethan slid his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. The hum of the city was far below, but up here, it was quiet. "You saved me," he murmured. She smiled faintly. "You weren't broken." His lips brushed her temple. "I was hidden." For a while, they stayed like that, wrapped in silence that felt like music. Then Madison's voice broke the stillness. "Do you remember what I accidentally texted you?" He chuckled softly against her skin. "Vividly. I love you. Please don't leave me." She turned in his arms, searching his eyes. "You thought it was a mistake," he said quietly. But it reached the right person. Her breath caught. Ethan reached into the pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it, not with showmanship, but with reverence. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. No grandeur, no performance, just truth. "I love you," he said, "and I'm not going anywhere." Tears welled in her eyes. "That message, it wasn't meant for you," she swallowed. "But maybe it always was." He slipped the ring onto her finger. The city roared below them, alive and relentless. But above it all, on that rooftop, two people stood on the edge of their past and stepped fully, finally, into their future together.